today's slok is the 25th, and it goes, Avyaktoya machintyoya mavikaryoya muchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanusochitumarhasi. So, the core meaning for this verse is, the soul is said to be invisible, inconceivable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Now, before we go into this, let's go ahead and remember the background knowledge that we need to know for this. Because, as we know, right now, Arjun is in a chariot in the middle of a battle, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, not wanting to fight his family members, relatives, teachers, everybody who has basically raised him. He doesn't want to fight, and Krishna is here in the chariot with Arjun, and he is convincing Arjun why he should fight. And therefore, that's why I said, knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. That's where that part is coming from. So, this verse is like the conclusion. It's like the cherry on top to everything Krishna has taught from verse 11 of chapter 2 to verse 24 of chapter 2. For nearly 15 verses, by the way, that's very long, Krishna has patiently answered every fear that Arjun has raised. Arjun feared death. Krishna answered, the soul never dies. Arjun feared change. Krishna answered, the soul never changes. Arjun feared destruction. Krishna answers, nothing can destroy the soul. Now Krishna asks one final question without directly asking it. If the soul cannot be seen, destroyed, cannot change, and cannot die, then why are you grieving the soul as if the soul has been lost in the first place? This verse, it's not introducing something new, it's just adding on to the verses that we've done. Like, there's layers to this. It's Krishna tying together all of the layers that we have with the thread that he has woven so far. By so far, I mean like 15 verses. So, avyakta, meaning the soul is unmanifest. Avyaktoyam, meaning the soul is unmanifest. This does not mean that the soul does not exist. It means the soul cannot be perceived through ordinary eyes like the eyes that we have. It means you cannot see it with your eyes, you cannot you cannot hear it with your hands, with your ears. You cannot hear it with your ears. You cannot touch it with your hands. You cannot photograph it with the camera. You cannot place it under a microscope even though it's like microscopic. And why? Why can't you do all of that? It's because our senses are designed to perceive matter. The soul is not matter. Now, think about gravity. Has anybody seen with their own two eyes gravity? I don't think so. And if you do, maybe you should go ahead and check yourself into a mental ward. I'm sorry. We don't see gravity in itself. We see gravity's effects. An apple falls. The planet's orbit. Tides rise. That's all gravity is doing. But we see the effects it has, but we don't see gravity directly. Yet, just because we don't see it with our two eyes, we don't see it directly, doesn't mean that gravity is unreal. And similarly, Krishna teaches that a soul is known through its presence and its effects, not because it becomes an object before our eyes, or before our ears and hands, I must say. So, the body is alive, the mind thinks, consciousness shines through experience. These all point towards something a lot deeper than just matter alone, and that's something that we should all know by now. At least I hope we do. So, have you ever went ahead and asked yourself, who is the one who is experiencing my thoughts? Because thoughts come and go, emotions come and go, memories, they come and go. But there's always someone who is aware of them, aware of all of the above. Can you see that awareness? Or are you that awareness? Krishna is like basically inviting Arjun to look beyond what the eyes perceive. Look outside the box. Think outside the box. I don't know how the saying goes. We'll just pretend that's right. So, achintyoyam. That means the soul is inconceivable. Many people misunderstand this word. Krishna is not saying don't think about it. He's saying the soul cannot be fully captured by ordinary thinking or the ordinary senses that we have, our ordinary eyes, ears, touch, all of that. You cannot, as I said earlier, you cannot see the soul. You cannot touch the soul. You cannot hear the soul. So, that's why there are limits to the human mind. I've talked about this the last class. I'm not sure. I believe I have. For example, can you imagine infinity perfectly? Like, if you just go ahead, close your eyes, use your brain, can you just imagine infinity? Not the infinity sign, just like infinity. You can't. Can you completely picture eternity? Can you fully visualize consciousness itself? These are the things that we have spoken about and all of that. We can point towards them. But just because we can do that, just because we see the effects doesn't mean that we see it directly. They exceed the limits of ordinary conceptual thinking. The soul belongs to that category. The soul is not irrational. It goes beyond the categories that the mind usually uses. It's just like a two-dimensional drawing cannot fully show or give off the effect of a three-dimensional object. The ordinary mind cannot completely contain the reality of the soul. So, avikaryoyam, meaning the soul is completely unchangeable. Krishna has already hinted at this multiple times. Now he's just directly stating it. Everything material changes. Everything material goes through the 6 stages of material existence, whether it be a lamp in front of you, whether it be a camera, whether it be a house, a basement, a tree, I don't know. Everything material goes through the 6 stages of material nature. Everything material, it's gonna change. Children grow, mountains erode, stars explode. I know that's hard to believe. Yeah, stars explode. I did not know that. Languages evolve. We've seen the evolution of English, Nepali, all of that. We've seen the evolution through our own eyes. Civilizations, they rise, they fall. All of that happens in the material world, and all of that shows that everything material changes. Even your personality develops over time. Older or younger, greater or smaller, that witness does not become happier or sadder. Beneath every experience that we have remains the witnessing self, the soul. The soul witnesses every decision that we make. The soul witnesses quite literally everything. It's like a third eye, basically. And that witness, it does not make the soul happier or sadder, older or younger, greater or smaller. It just simply witnesses. It just simply sees. That's it. And that's why Krishna is repeating this teaching. Arjun's grief comes from believing that the ultimate reality is changing. Krishna insists ultimate reality does not change. Only appearances do. And that's why he says the soul changing bodies is like how a person changes old clothes. Remember that verse, it's important. So, Krishna has pointed out all of these qualities, but why do the qualities matter together? Here, notice the order that they're in. First, the soul cannot be perceived through the senses. Second, it cannot be completely grasped through ordinary thought. Third, it cannot be altered by anything. And by anything, I mean like everything. It cannot be altered by anything in creation. And together, Krishna describes a reality that's beyond sensory perception, beyond conceptual limitation, and beyond material transformation. He's gently lifting Arjun's attention away from the battlefield and towards something infinitely deeper, which is Arjun's fear of death, Arjun's fear of killing one of his relatives, even though he knows that those people are in the wrong. So, what does the Sankaracharya think about this? According to him, this verse explains how the self cannot be treated like any other object. Everything we know through the senses becomes an object of awareness. But the self, the soul is the subject. It's the very consciousness by which all objects are known. Can the eye see itself directly? You can't see your eyes without a mirror or without a reflection. Directly, you cannot see your eyes directly without a mirror or a reflection. I just said that twice. Likewise, consciousness cannot become an object because it is that which makes all knowing possible. That's why consciousness, that's why the soul, that's why the supreme reality cannot be seen as an object. So, for Sankaracharya, the self is beyond. It's all beyond thought, beyond everything, beyond thought, because thought itself appears within consciousness. The witness can never be reduced to one more thing being witnessed. Now, what does Ramanujacharya think about this? He also agrees that the soul cannot be perceived by the physical senses. As I said earlier, your eyes cannot see the soul, your ears cannot hear the soul, your hands cannot touch the soul. But, however, he emphasizes that the soul is still a real individual entity. Its invisibility does not diminish its existence, and instead, it reminds us that spiritual realities are known through scripture, right understanding, and devotion rather than through sensory observation alone. For Ramanujacharya, the soul's unchangeable nature reflects Bhagwan's wisdom in creating conscious beings that essentially how do I explain this? Ramanujacharya, he thinks that the soul's unchangeable nature, it reflects Bhagwan's wisdom in creating conscious beings whose essential identity endures even while the bodily conditions change. And by that, he means how the soul stays the same despite the body going through the stages of material existence, aka growing older, getting wrinkles, getting shorter, all of that stuff. Yet the soul remains the same. In simpler words, that's just what Ramanujacharya is trying to say. So, go ahead, close your eyes, it's imagine time. Imagine listening to a beautiful song through headphones. You hear the melody, the rhythm, the harmony, and now, after hearing all of that, ask yourself, can you see the music? Can you hold the music in your hand? Can you feel the music in your hands? Can you taste the music? Can you smell the music? No, you cannot. Of course not. You can't measure the beauty of music with a ruler either. That's something I forgot to add. Yet, just because you cannot see it, just because you cannot hear it, just because you cannot taste it, just because you cannot smell it, just because you cannot touch it, that does not mean that it's not real. In that same way, Krishna teaches that the soul cannot be reduced to something visible or measurable. Its deepest reality, it is experienced and not captured. The inability to see something does not make it unreal. Another example, wind. Can you see the wind? Not at all times. Just because you can't see it, does that mean that the wind is not real? Incorrect. Sometimes the most important realities are the ones that cannot be touched. So, if I were to summarize this verse, I would conclude by saying Krishna's teachings on the eternal nature of the soul by revealing that it is unmanifest, inconceivable, and unchangeable. So, the soul cannot be perceived through the senses. I've mentioned this multiple times. And it's honestly just funny to me. You can't touch a soul, you can't taste a soul, you can't smell a soul, you can't hear a soul, you can't see a soul. But that does not mean that the soul does not exist. It can't be fully grasped by ordinary thought or altered by any material force, such as something I've mentioned a lot, the 6 stages of material nature. Please look into that. It's actually really interesting. So, Sankaracharya, he explains that this is because the self is the very subject of all experience, the witnessing consciousness that can never become an object of perception or thought. It is a lot higher than the ultimate reality for our brains to perceive it, basically. I can't think of a better word than perceive. Yet Ramanujacharya, he agrees that the soul is invisible to the senses, but he also says that just because you can't see it does not mean that it's unreal, and the soul's nature is being understood through divine revelation and spiritual wisdom. That's the only way that you can truly understand your soul. Krishna's conclusion is very simple. Once a person understands that the true self lies beyond sight, beyond thought, beyond change, beyond the senses, grief rooted in bodily identification begins to dissolve because nothing essential has ever been lost. Thank you.